Self-respect begins in the moments when no one is watching, in the silence between your actions and your thoughts, in the quiet decisions that define the kind of man you are when there's no applause, no validation, no audience. It's the invisible foundation that everything else in your life stands on, and without it, every other quality, confidence, purpose, leadership, crumbles under pressure. Most men go through life trying to earn respect from others without realizing that respect is never something you chase. It's something you attract by the way you live. You can't force people to value you if you don't value yourself first. Every choice you make sends a message about what you think you deserve. When you let people cross your boundaries without consequence, when you stay in places that drain you, when you say yes just to be liked, you teach others that your time, your peace, and your energy are negotiable. Self-respect is when you stop negotiating with yourself. It's when you decide that your peace is more important than someone else's approval. It's when you stop performing for love and start embodying your worth, because a man who doesn't respect himself becomes addicted to external validation, and that addiction will make him weak. He will bend, shrink, and lose himself piece by piece trying to keep others comfortable. He will confuse people pleasing with kindness, weakness with patience, and submission with love. But real self-respect doesn't require you to be cold or arrogant. It just requires you to have standards that you actually live by. It means understanding that you set the tone for how others treat you. A man who walks with dignity doesn't beg for respect. He embodies it. It's visible in his presence, in his silence, in the way he holds eye contact without trying to prove dominance. It's in the way he moves through life with calm, measured energy, not rushing to impress, not desperate to be seen, but always grounded in his own value. Women can sense that kind of man instantly. They might not be able to explain it, but they feel it. It's in his energy, the quiet steadiness that says, "I know who I am." That presence commands respect far more than loudness ever could. The man with self-respect doesn't tolerate disrespect in any form, not from women, not from friends, not from himself. He doesn't chase people who withdraw their attention, and he doesn't lower his standards to fit into situations that don't align with his values. He understands that sometimes walking away is more powerful than winning an argument. Because when you can say no without guilt, when you can remove yourself from what doesn't serve you, that's when you start to reclaim your power. Too many men confuse being nice with being weak. They think that giving endlessly will eventually make someone see their worth, but all it does is teach others to take without appreciation. Self-respect means giving from a place of abundance, not desperation. It means knowing that love is something you offer, not something you beg for. When a man respects himself, he doesn't allow low-effort people to drain his energy. He values his time, his body, his mind. He treats rest as sacred, his goals as priorities, and his emotions as valuable. He doesn't need to explain his boundaries or over-justify them. They are simply part of who he is. And because of that, his presence carries weight. He becomes someone people think twice before disrespecting. Women test this without even realizing it. They'll observe how you handle small challenges, how you react when you're ignored, how you behave when your patience is tested. They're not always testing to manipulate. They're trying to understand if your confidence is real or fragile, if your strength is built on character or ego. Because a man who bends at the first sign of pressure reveals that his foundation was never solid to begin with. And when that happens, admiration fades, not because he wasn't kind or giving, but because he lost sight of himself. Respect is never found in losing yourself for someone else's comfort. It's found in holding your ground even when it costs you company. The truth is, people can only meet you at the level you meet yourself. If you treat yourself like an afterthought, you'll be treated that way. If you carry yourself like a man of value, you'll attract people who recognize and honor that value. Self-respect is also discipline. It's how you show up for your goals when nobody is watching. It's choosing to do what's hard instead of what's easy. Not because you're being punished, but because you refuse to betray your potential. It's waking up early to take care of your body, reading instead of wasting time, cutting off distractions that dull your edge. It's telling yourself the truth about your weaknesses instead of hiding behind excuses. When you live like that, something changes inside you. You start to trust yourself. You start to walk differently, speak differently, make decisions differently. That inner trust becomes visible, and people feel it. Women especially notice it because it radiates stability. A man who respects himself doesn't need to boast or prove anything. His consistency speaks louder than any words could. And here's the thing most men never realize: self-respect makes you more peaceful. It makes you less reactive, less needy, less emotionally chaotic. Because when you respect yourself, you stop trying to earn what you already possess. You stop letting other people's opinions dictate your worth. You stop attaching your identity to temporary situations. That's why a self-respecting man doesn't chase validation. He attracts respect. His energy says, I am whole, and that quiet confidence is magnetic. It's not about perfection, it's about alignment. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you strengthen that alignment. Every time you walk away from something that insults your value, you reinforce it. Every time you speak the truth instead of playing small, you build it. Self-respect is forged in small, unseen choices that accumulate over time until they become who you are. It's a muscle that grows stronger with use. Over time, that self-respect changes the way people see you. You no longer have to demand better treatment because your presence demands it. You no longer need to prove your worth because it's obvious in how you carry yourself. You don't overgive, over-explain, or overstay. You don't compete for attention because you understand that was meant for you will recognize your value without needing to be convinced. And that's the irony. Once you stop seeking respect, you start receiving it naturally because people are drawn to those who don't compromise their identity for approval. Women especially are drawn to a man who doesn't lose himself in love, who can give deeply but still stand alone with integrity. A man like that becomes unforgettable, not because he tries to impress, but because he lives from a place of quiet certainty. He's the kind of man whose presence lingers, whose energy commands without force, whose peace feels like power. Because when you truly respect yourself, everything around you begins to align with that same energy. Emotional control is not about suppressing feelings or pretending not to care. It's about mastering the space between emotion and reaction. It's the calm that comes from strength, not numbness. Most men are taught that control means not showing weakness, but real control is something deeper. It's understanding your emotions so completely that they no longer have the power to dictate your behavior. It's the ability to stand in the middle of chaos and remain composed, to be provoked and still not lose your center. The men who master emotional control don't do it to impress anyone. They do it because they know that losing control means losing respect, both from themselves and from others. When you can feel anger without becoming destructive, when you can feel pain without breaking down, when you can feel fear and still move forward, that's when you become unshakable. It's not about being emotionless, it's about being emotionally disciplined. Every man feels anger, disappointment, jealousy, and doubt. These are part of being human, But the difference between a weak man and a strong one is how he handles those feelings. The weak man reacts immediately. He lashes out, blames others, or shuts down completely. The strong man pauses. He takes a breath. He watches his emotions rise and fall without being enslaved by them. He understands that every emotion is temporary, that no feeling lasts forever, and that patience is power. This kind of composure builds respect because people can trust a man who doesn't lose himself when things go wrong. Women, especially, are drawn to that energy because it signals safety. They can sense when a man's emotions are stable, when he's not going to crumble under pressure or turn volatile when things get intense. Emotional control is a form of leadership. It shows that you can hold space for yourself and others without being consumed by the storm. But control doesn't come naturally. It's built through countless moments of restraint, through the discipline of watching your impulses and choosing not to act on them. It's forged in the situations that test your patience, in the arguments where you could easily win by raising your voice, but choose instead to stay silent and measured. The man who practices this kind of control earns a quiet power that others feel instinctively. His calm presence unsettles those who rely on chaos for control because they realize they can't manipulate him emotionally. He's not reactive, and that makes him unpredictable in the best way. When a man controls his emotions, he controls the pace of the situation. He becomes the grounding force in every interaction, the one others unconsciously look to for stability. There's a reason why emotional control is so closely linked to masculinity. It's not because men shouldn't feel, but because masculine energy represents order in the midst of disorder. It's the steady hand when everything else is shaking. A man who can't regulate his emotions becomes unreliable. His strength becomes inconsistent. People may like him when he's calm, but they fear him when he's angry. Over time, that erodes respect. On the other hand, a man who stays calm under pressure earns authority without saying a word. He doesn't need to argue to make his point. His composure alone speaks volumes. It tells people that he is in control of himself and therefore in control of his life. And that, more than anything, earns lasting respect. It's important to understand that emotional control doesn't mean emotional distance. It doesn't mean pretending not to feel or shutting off your heart. It means learning how to channel your emotions productively. Anger, when controlled, becomes assertiveness. Sadness, when acknowledged, becomes empathy. Fear, when understood, becomes awareness. Every emotion has energy, and that energy can be transformed into strength if it's handled correctly. But when you let your emotions run wild, they control you instead. They make you say things you don't mean, make decisions you regret, and act in ways that weaken your authority. That's why mastering emotional control is one of the most powerful forms of self-respect. It shows that you are the master of your mind, not its prisoner. In relationships, this quality changes everything. A man with emotional control doesn't argue just to win. He listens to understand. He doesn't explode when disrespected. He sets boundaries calmly and walks away when necessary. He doesn't let someone else's behavior dictate his mood. He knows that reacting emotionally gives away his power. When you can remain calm in the face of provocation, you disarm manipulation completely. Because most conflicts are emotional traps. When someone can make you react, they control you. But when you stay centered, you expose their chaos and highlight your strength. Women deeply respect men who can do this because it creates a sense of trust. They know that you won't crumble or retaliate when emotions run high. That emotional safety is rare, and it's one of the reasons why calm, grounded men are seen as powerful. There's also a spiritual dimension to emotional control. When you stop reacting impulsively, You begin to see the patterns that govern your behavior. You start to recognize the triggers that once made you lose your temper or doubt yourself. You begin to understand that every emotion carries a message. Anger points to boundaries being crossed. Fear points to growth. Sadness points to loss that needs to be honored. Instead of fighting your emotions, you learn from them. That awareness is what transforms you from being reactive to being responsive. The difference may seem small, but it's everything. Reacting is instinctive, but responding is intentional. And every time you respond instead of react, you reinforce your strength. A man who can control his emotions becomes untouchable, not because he's perfect, but because he's consistent. People know what to expect from him. They know that he won't crumble under pressure or lose his composure when things don't go his way. That reliability creates a sense of respect that no words can replicate. Even in business, leadership, and friendship, emotional control sets the tone. It shows that you're driven by principle, not impulse. It communicates maturity without needing to be loud about it. People follow calm energy because it's rare in a world addicted to chaos. It's also worth noting that emotional control doesn't mean suppressing your truth. It means expressing it with precision instead of volatility. It's the difference between yelling and speaking with clarity, between crying in frustration and reflecting with honesty. It's the difference between reacting to pain and using that pain to grow stronger. The man who has emotional control doesn't avoid vulnerability. He just refuses to let vulnerability make him unstable. He knows when to speak and when silence says more. He knows when to fight and when walking away is the real act of strength. He knows that being emotional is not the problem. Being ruled by emotion is. Every man who has mastered emotional control has gone through a period of chaos to earn it. He's faced betrayal, anger, heartbreak, humiliation, failure. But instead of letting those moments harden him, he used them to sharpen his awareness. He learned that his emotions are tools, not enemies. He learned that calmness is a choice that has to be made every single day. That's why when he speaks, his words carry weight. When he acts, his movements are deliberate. When he listens fully, because he's not distracted by internal noise. His focus is intact. And people feel that clarity when they're around him. It makes them trust him, even if they can't explain why. It's not charisma, it's control. It's the ability to hold steady when others fall apart, to think clearly when everyone else is lost in reaction. That's the real essence of masculine strength, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be felt, the kind that radiates through composure, through patience, through emotional mastery. There's something deeply magnetic about a man who knows where he's going, not just in terms of goals or career, but in the quiet certainty of direction that shapes his every step. Purpose gives a man gravity. It makes his energy different, his presence grounded, his decisions meaningful. When a man moves through life with a sense of mission, everything about him communicates focus, his body language, his tone, his discipline, even his silence. You can feel it in the way he walks, in the way he prioritizes, in the way he protects his time. Purpose is what separates the man who drifts from the man who leads. It's not about being obsessed with success or chasing validation. It's about having something that calls you forward every single day, something that reminds you who you are and what you stand for. Because when a man loses his purpose, he loses his power. He becomes easily distracted, easily swayed, easily consumed by things that don't matter. Without direction, he becomes restless, chasing pleasures instead of fulfillment, attention instead of achievement, comfort instead of challenge. But a man anchored in purpose doesn't chase anything. He attracts through alignment. Purpose gives meaning to the struggle. It turns pain into progress and rejection into redirection. The man with purpose understands that setbacks aren't signs of failure, they're tests of endurance. He knows that every obstacle is part of the path, that discipline is the price of becoming who he's meant to be. And that discipline becomes his silent language. It's not about motivation, because motivation fades. It's about structure, routine, and the refusal to quit when things get difficult. Purpose keeps a man moving when no one is clapping for him. It's what makes him wake up early, stay late, and keep building even when no one believes in him yet. That persistence is what people feel when they're around him. It's the energy of a man who doesn't need to prove himself because his work already speaks for him. Women sense that energy immediately. It's not about how loud he is, but about the certainty that radiates from him. That sense that he's not lost, that he knows where he's headed, and nothing will pull him off track. A man with purpose carries a kind of peace that comes from clarity. He's not easily tempted by meaningless distractions because he's too focused on the long game. He doesn't need to compete or show off because he's already competing with his own potential. That's what makes him rare. Most men drift because they don't know what they truly want, and so they end up chasing everything that glitters. But purpose brings simplicity. It teaches you what to say no to. It makes your choices cleaner, your path sharper. It removes noise. When you live with purpose, you start to realize how precious your time and energy are, and you stop giving them to things that don't move you forward. You stop arguing about meaningless things. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't understand your vision. You stop needing validation from anyone because your direction validates itself through results. Purpose isn't always glamorous. Most of it is silent, repetitive work. It's staying disciplined when no one is watching. It's making sacrifices that others don't understand. It's facing the loneliness that comes with walking a path few people are brave enough to walk. But that's where strength is built. That's where confidence grows, not from praise, but from consistency. When a man finds something he's willing to dedicate himself to, something that challenges him and forces him to evolve, he becomes unstoppable. His mind sharpens, his body aligns with his mission, and his energy becomes magnetic. Women notice it not because he tries to impress them, but because purpose naturally commands attention. It's not about arrogance. It's about direction. People respect direction because it's rare. In a world full of men chasing comfort, the one who chases purpose stands out. And the thing about purpose is that it gives everything else meaning. Relationships become deeper, friendships become stronger, work becomes sacred. A man with purpose doesn't settle for shallow connections because he doesn't have time for anything that drains his mission. He surrounds himself with people who elevate him, who challenge him, who match his energy. He's not afraid to be alone because solitude doesn't scare a man with direction. It fuels him. Solitude is where he refines his vision, where he reconnects with his why, where he sharpens his focus. He doesn't need noise to feel alive because his mission keeps him grounded, and that groundedness makes him powerful in every area of life. Women respect that kind of man because he's not seeking identity through them. He already has one. His purpose defines his worth, not his relationship status. He's not looking for someone to complete him. He's looking for someone to complement him. Purpose transforms how a man moves through the world. It changes his posture, his energy, his communication. When you know your purpose, you stop rushing, you stop forcing, you stop doubting every step. You start to trust the process. Even when it's difficult, you start to accept failure as feedback instead of defeat. You begin to carry yourself differently because you know that every moment of struggle is preparing you for something greater. That quiet confidence becomes visible. It's not the kind that needs to announce itself. It's the kind that people feel before you even speak. A man walking in purpose doesn't need to say, "I'm going somewhere." His discipline says it for him. His energy makes people curious. His progress makes people watch. His consistency makes people believe. But purpose doesn't come automatically. It's something you have to fight for. It's something you have to protect from the noise of the world. Because every day, distractions will try to pull you away from it. Comfort will whisper that it's okay to stop. Doubt will question whether it's worth it. Fear will try to convince you that you're not ready. That's why purpose requires resilience. It demands that you stay loyal to your vision even when everything around you suggests otherwise. It demands sacrifice, patience, and faith. It's not just about what you do, but who you become in the process, because the journey of purpose is really the journey of becoming the man capable of fulfilling it. And when a man aligns with his purpose, it shows in every aspect of his life. His conversations gain depth, his presence gains weight, his decisions gain clarity. He no longer chases attention because he's too focused on impact. He no longer compares himself to others because he's too busy competing with his own potential. He no longer seeks quick rewards because he understands that real success is built through consistency. And that energy is powerful. It draws people in. It earns respect without demanding it. It creates influence without manipulation. That's why men with purpose often have a calm intensity about them. They don't need to talk about their plans. They live them. They don't need to announce their progress. It's visible. They don't need to prove their worth. It's self-evident in the way they carry themselves. Purpose also sharpens a man's intuition. The more he follows his calling, the more he begins to trust his instincts. He learns to recognize what aligns with him and what doesn't. He doesn't ignore red flags, whether in business, relationships, or friendships, because he knows that anything that distracts from his mission will eventually drain his strength. He becomes selective not out of pride, but out of wisdom. His time becomes sacred. His focus becomes priceless. His energy becomes something he protects fiercely, because once you understand what you're building, you stop entertaining things that threaten it. And that kind of discipline earns respect without words. People may not always agree with him, but they can't help but respect his commitment. Purpose gives a man something no one else can give him: self-trust. When you're aligned with your mission, you stop questioning your worth. You stop doubting your ability. You stop looking outside yourself for validation. You start trusting that what you're doing matters, even when it's hard, even when it's lonely, even when no one understands it yet. That's the essence of masculine strength. The ability to walk a path with conviction, to carry your mission quietly, to keep building even when the world is silent. Because at the end of the day, purpose isn't about achievement. It's about becoming the man who never needed permission to pursue what he was born to do. Real confidence isn't something you perform. It's something you embody. It's not in the loudness of your voice, the flash of your clothes, or the number of people who notice you. It's in the calm steadiness of your energy, the quiet knowing that you're enough without having to prove it. Confidence is not arrogance. Arrogance is loud because it's insecure. It shouts because it's afraid to be unseen. True confidence doesn't need to announce itself. It's quiet, composed, effortless. It comes from a deep understanding of who you are, what you stand for, and what you're capable of. You don't need to convince anyone because your actions already do the talking. That kind of confidence is magnetic because it feels real. It's not a performance. It's presence. It's the way you hold eye contact without forcing dominance, the way you speak clearly without trying to impress, the way you remain unshaken by other people's opinions. Most men mistake confidence for external validation. They think confidence means getting attention, being admired, being envied. But real confidence starts when you stop seeking those things. It begins the moment you stop needing approval to feel worthy. Because until your self-worth comes from within, you'll always be at the mercy of others. A confident man doesn't need the room to like him. He needs to like himself. He doesn't need everyone to agree with him. He needs to trust his own judgment. He doesn't need every woman to desire him. He needs to respect the man he sees in the mirror. That kind of confidence is built through action, not affirmation. It comes from showing up, failing, learning, and repeating until you develop quiet certainty in your abilities. It's not about never feeling doubt. It's about not being controlled by it. The most confident men are often the calmest. They move with intention because they've stopped competing with others. They know that comparison is the thief of peace. They understand that someone else's success doesn't take away from their own. That's why their energy feels grounded. They don't rush. They don't beg for recognition. They don't over-explain themselves. When they walk into a room, they don't demand attention. They command it naturally. Because people can sense authenticity. They can tell when someone is comfortable in their own skin. They can feel when a man's confidence comes from real self-knowledge instead of ego. Women especially notice this difference. They can tell when a man's confidence is rooted in inner peace versus when it's just performance. True confidence doesn't need validation because it's built on self-trust. Confidence isn't about perfection. In fact, it's often revealed most clearly through imperfection. It's how you handle mistakes, failure, or rejection that shows your true strength. The confident man doesn't crumble when things don't go his way because his identity isn't built on winning. It's built on effort, consistency, and growth. He understands that setbacks don't define him, they refine him. That's why he doesn't fear failure. He's willing to try, to learn, to take risks. The insecure man avoids failure because he's afraid of being exposed. The confident man embraces it because he knows that confidence grows through experience. Every challenge, every rejection, every lesson adds another layer to his self-assurance. That's why over time, his energy feels unshakable. It's not that life is easier for him. It's that he's learned to remain steady through the storm. There's also a humility that comes with true confidence. The man who is truly sure of himself doesn't need to belittle others or dominate conversations. He doesn't need to prove that he's right all the time. He doesn't get defensive over small things because he knows his worth isn't threatened by other people's opinions. He can listen without feeling attacked. He can admit when he's wrong without feeling small. He can celebrate others' success without feeling jealous. That's the kind of confidence that commands deep respect. It's subtle but powerful. It's the kind of confidence that makes people feel safe around you because they know your ego won't explode at the slightest challenge. And this kind of confidence has an undeniable effect on attraction. Women are drawn to it not because it's flashy, but because it communicates stability. A confident man doesn't chase attention. He gives attention selectively. He doesn't overinvest in people who don't reciprocate. He doesn't try to impress through words. His energy speaks first. His calmness under pressure. His ability to hold emotional composure. His quiet decisiveness. All of it communicates that he's someone who can be trusted. In a world where so many people are driven by insecurity, the man who radiates inner peace becomes magnetic without trying. He doesn't force connection, he allows it. He doesn't try to be chosen, he becomes the kind of man worth choosing. Confidence is also deeply connected to purpose. When a man knows what he's building and why, his actions naturally carry conviction. Direction breeds confidence. When you have a clear mission, you stop doubting yourself as much because you have something bigger than yourself to commit to. You're not just drifting through life, you're moving intentionally. And that sense of purpose reinforces your confidence every day. Every small victory, every completed task, every boundary kept becomes proof that you can trust yourself. That's where real self-assurance comes from, not from hype, but from evidence. You become confident because you've seen yourself follow through. You've seen yourself endure, adapt, overcome. And confidence doesn't mean you never feel fear. It means you act anyway. The difference between the confident man and the insecure one isn't that one has no fear. It's that one doesn't let fear stop him. He feels the anxiety, the uncertainty, the risk, but he still takes the step forward. Because confidence is built through courage, not comfort. Every time you do something that scares you, you strengthen that muscle. Every time you keep your word to yourself, your belief in yourself grows. Over time, you stop overthinking and start trusting your instincts. You start realizing that you don't need to be perfect to be powerful. You just need to be consistent. Confidence also affects how you carry yourself physically. The way you walk, the way you speak, the way you make eye contact, all of it reflects how you feel about yourself. You don't need to act tough or exaggerated. Simplicity and composure are often more powerful. A straight posture, a calm tone, a relaxed presence. All of these communicate quiet strength. The more at peace you are with yourself, the more naturally confident you appear. That's why inner work is the foundation of outer confidence. You can't fake it for long. The body eventually exposes what the mind is hiding. Real confidence comes from doing the work, facing your fears, healing your insecurities, developing your skills, and living with integrity. When you reach that level of self-assurance, you stop chasing people and opportunities. You understand that what's meant for you will align naturally. You don't beg to be understood or accepted. You focus on showing up as your best self and letting everything else sort itself out. That detachment isn't indifference. It's faith. It's knowing that you've done the work and that your worth doesn't depend on anyone else's recognition. That's what gives confident men their mysterious calmness. They're not desperate to be liked because they already like themselves. They're not afraid of losing people because they trust in their ability to rebuild. They're not obsessed with control because they know that real power doesn't come from forcing, it comes from flow. Ultimately, confidence is freedom. Freedom from overthinking, from insecurity, from needing to perform. It's the peace that comes from knowing that no matter what happens, you can handle it. It's not about having all the answers. It's about trusting that you'll figure it out when the time comes. That kind of confidence can't be taught through books or copied from others. It's earned through experience, through failures, through solitude, through the daily decision to show up, even when it's hard. And once you've built it, no one can take it from you, because it's not borrowed, it's owned. And when a man carries that kind of inner certainty, when he moves through life with that kind of quiet power, people can feel it long before he ever speaks. If there's one thing that builds lasting respect faster than charm, success, or appearance, it's integrity. A man's word is one of the few things in life that can't be bought or faked for long. You can dress well, speak eloquently, even project an image of strength. But if your actions don't align with your words, that illusion will always fall apart. Integrity is what gives your presence weight, what makes people listen when you speak, what makes women trust your leadership. It's not about being flawless. It's about being consistent. It's about being the same man when no one is watching as you are when everyone is watching. Because the truth is, everyone's paying attention more than you think. Women especially notice the details most men overlook. The tone you use with others, how you handle frustration, how you respond when things don't go your way. Those moments reveal your true character more than any speech ever could. A man with integrity doesn't make promises he doesn't intend to keep. He doesn't speak just to impress. He doesn't bend his morals when life gets uncomfortable. He stands where others hesitate, even when it costs him something, even when it means losing people or opportunities. He stays true to his principles. That steadiness is what builds respect over time. Because people may not always agree with you, but they'll learn to trust you. And trust, once earned, creates a foundation stronger than attraction. Women don't just want to feel drawn to a man, they want to feel safe with him. And safety doesn't come from muscles or money, it comes from reliability. It comes from knowing that the man beside them is who he says he is, not only when things are easy, but especially when things get hard. Integrity is tested most when no one would know if you cut corners, when you could get away with something, but you choose not to, when you could lie to make yourself look better, but you tell the truth instead, when you could betray a commitment for convenience, but you stand firm. That's when real character is revealed, because integrity is not built in the spotlight, it's built in silence. It's what you choose to do in those small private moments that no one else will ever see. That's what shapes the way people feel your energy when you walk into a room. A man who lives in alignment doesn't need to convince anyone of his goodness. They can feel it in his presence. There's a calmness about him, a quiet confidence that can't be faked. That's what makes him stand out in a world full of performance. And then there's leadership, the extension of integrity into influence. Leadership isn't about control or authority, it's about responsibility. It's not about telling others what to do, it's about showing them through your own actions how it's done. True leadership begins with self-leadership. If you can't control your emotions, keep your word, or make disciplined decisions, you can't expect anyone else to follow you. That's why the most respected leaders are the ones who live what they preach. They don't just talk about discipline, they embody it. They don't demand respect, they earn it through consistency. A man who leads with integrity doesn't have to raise his voice or force his will. People follow him naturally because his steadiness makes them feel secure. And that's especially true for women. When a woman senses that you can stay calm under pressure, that you can lead with strength and empathy, that you can take responsibility without blame, that's when her respect deepens. Leadership isn't about ego, it's about presence. It's being able to anchor a situation when emotions rise. It's being the calm in the storm, the one who brings order when chaos appears. The man who can listen without reacting, who can speak with purpose instead of anger, who can guide without controlling. That's real authority. People confuse loudness with leadership, but they're not the same. The loudest man in the room is often the most insecure. The true leader doesn't need to shout because his composure speaks louder than any words could. And when you lead this way, not only do people respect you, they feel drawn to your presence. They feel grounded around you because your energy communicates safety. That's what makes women admire and trust men who lead with integrity. It's not about dominance. It's about direction. A man who leads well also takes accountability. He doesn't deflect blame when things go wrong. He owns his mistakes. He doesn't use excuses or blame others to protect his pride. That humility is what separates real leaders from pretenders, because no one respects a man who avoids responsibility. But everyone respects the one who can say, "I was wrong, and I'll fix it." That sentence carries more power than any attempt to look perfect ever could. Integrity and leadership together create the kind of authority that doesn't fade with time. It's not built on intimidation or image. It's built on trust and truth. That's why when people think of real men, they think of steadiness, reliability, character. These are the things that last long after charm fades. Leadership also means emotional discipline. When conflict arises, a real leader doesn't add fire to the flames. He regulates himself. He knows that his energy sets the tone for everyone around him. When he stays calm, others naturally mirror that calm. When he listens first instead of reacting, people feel heard and valued. And when he makes decisions from a place of clarity instead of fear, people follow because they trust his judgment. That's why women feel emotionally safe with men who lead like this. They know that no matter how chaotic life becomes, he won't fall apart. He won't lash out or retreat in silence. He'll face things head on with steadiness. That steadiness builds respect faster than anything else. Integrity is also revealed in how you treat those who can do nothing for you. How you talk to the waiter, how you speak about people behind their backs, how you handle power when you have it and humility when you don't. A man who treats everyone with the same level of respect, regardless of status, is a man who carries true strength. Because it's easy to be kind when it benefits you, but real integrity is kindness without agenda. It's doing right without expecting reward. Women see that. They notice the small gestures, the patience, the honesty, the fairness, and that's where respect takes root. A man who embodies these qualities becomes rare because so many chase image instead of character. But image fades fast. Character endures. That's why integrity is the quiet force that builds reputations and relationships that last. The man who leads himself well inspires others to do the same. His discipline motivates, his calm steadiness influences, his honesty earns trust. He doesn't try to be perfect, he tries to be real. And that authenticity is what makes people listen when he speaks. They know he's not pretending. They know his words have weight because his actions have proven them true. That's what real leadership looks like. It's not a title. It's a way of being. It's how you carry yourself, how you show up, how you stay centered when life tests you. The man who leads from within doesn't need control to feel powerful. He doesn't need applause to feel valued. His fulfillment comes from knowing he's living in alignment with his principles. Leadership also requires vision. A man with integrity doesn't drift aimlessly through life. He knows where he's going. He may not have every step figured out, but he has direction. That sense of clarity is what allows others to trust him. Because people don't follow those who wander, they follow those who walk with purpose. A man who leads himself with vision naturally becomes an anchor for others. And that's one of the most respected forms of strength. When a woman sees that kind of focus combined with kindness, that steadiness combined with empathy, it creates something powerful. It creates trust without fear, admiration without anxiety, love without control. And when you live this way, you stop needing to demand respect because it becomes a byproduct of who you are. You stop chasing validation because you've built inner stability. You no longer need to manipulate situations or people to feel strong. You become strong by default because your values hold you upright. Integrity becomes your armor, and leadership becomes your expression of that armor in motion. People can sense it when they're around you. The calmness, the certainty, the quiet command that doesn't need to be proven. That's the kind of presence that lingers, the kind that earns lasting respect not through fear, but through trust, not through dominance, but through unwavering character.